Hi, everyone. We've set up this Being an Engineer podcast as an industry knowledge repository, if you will. We hope it'll be a tool where engineers can learn about and connect with other companies, technologies, people, resources, and opportunities. So make some connections and enjoy the show.
If you asked high school students, 99.9% of them will have a mobile phone in their pocket, right? But if you asked any of them how it was made, I bet there's less than 1% that understands how a mobile phone was made.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Being Engineer podcast. We are co-host Rafael Testai. Today, we have another very special guest. His name is Cliff Medling, and he is the host of the Born to Design podcast for SOLIDWORKS. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, we have the host of the Born to Design SOLIDWORKS podcast. He's an experienced, talented marketing professional with significant success in developing and launching marketing campaigns for leading high technology organizations that support a worldwide sales force. Leads with the strategy, content creation, and demand generation efforts, which target both customers and new prospects over several industries. Focuses on meeting sales goals, driving engagement, and a positive customer prospect experience. He manages campaigns from creation of content through delivery, including segmentation, localization, analytics, and performance. If some of these words don't make sense to some of the listeners, we're going to talk about a lot of marketing in this podcast and the overlaps that it has with engineering. So, Cliff, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rafael. It's good to be here.
Of course. So I've been a fan of your podcast, the Born to Design podcast, which all of our listeners can find in the show notes below. Tell us, what's your career background? How did you get involved with SOLIDWORKS? But you mentioned that you come from a degree in design. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I actually started off college in mechanical engineering. And I found out I didn't have the great study habits as some of the other students. But I actually worked in a lab, actually teaching AutoCAD to engineering students. And I found out about product design or industrial design. And I switched majors over to design, and I really enjoyed it and loved that. So I started actually worked for a large defense contractor doing more human factors engineering design work. And then later on, my career just gradually took me over into, my screen just went dead. I figured it'd stay on, but my career took me in a different direction into marketing. But the thing is, I always wanted to get back to the design world, to the engineering world, because I really enjoyed that market. So I did a short stint at Autodesk actually, and then I came over to SOLIDWORKS and have been there for quite some time now. And I will say now I actually have a really great position. I manage worldwide the customer referencing program or customer for all the case studies you see online on the SOLIDWORKS website that we promote heavily. Because we've got a lot of great customers, and I'm the one who gets to meet with them and talk with them and share their stories and promote their stories to the SOLIDWORKS and the design community. So it's great. I think we're lucky in this industry to have such interesting people who are problem solvers, inventors, creating new ideas. So it's a very fascinating community. And So the podcast just came out of that. I would go on site to visit a lot of customers and talk to them, about what they do, how they're using SOLIDWORKS. But a lot of times, like 25% of the time, there was a very fascinating story behind the story, right? How they were mentoring others in their community, how they were doing some cool innovations on the side. I got to work with a lot of the BattleBots teams. Most of them use SOLIDWORKS. So just some fascinating people who are doing a lot in their community, mentoring other engineers, teachers who are getting, how would I say this? Teachers who are mentoring a lot of students in a different direction than your typical student classroom or high school classroom. So just fascinating people. And for me, I love talking to people and sharing their stories. It's fascinating to me. So it's kind of interesting being on the other end here because I like asking the questions. So and learning more about people. So I think we recently just Johnny Floyd. Somebody introduced me to Johnny Floyd in our community, and he's a 91-year-old SolidWorks user. Fascinating guy, brilliant, still inventing, still coming up with new ideas, still problem solving. So I was able to capture and share his story. So those are really fun to me.
Johnny Floyd. Okay, I'm looking him up right now, and I'll leave a link in the description for our listeners so they can look into Johnny Floyd. So 91 years old. That's inspiring.
Right. 65 years of experience engineering. So yeah.
65 years.
Yeah,
wow.
long. So yeah, so he was. There's a quote on there where he talks about the first thing we got excited about using CAD, right, on the computer was colored lines. He said every line we drew before then was gray, right? So it's the small things at the beginning, but he's been using SolidWorks since the beginning.
I see that. I looked up Johnny Floyd SolidWorks, and I see that the article on the blogs.solidworks.com, which link will be in the show notes, is written by Cliff Medling, which we have here as a guest. I am also a writer here on the SolidWorks blog, so it's pretty cool. Okay. I clicked on your name, and I'm seeing what other articles you write on the blog.
Yeah, mainly just the blogs and maybe a few BattleBots. That's the main thing. Yeah, I always write a blog for each podcast just to help promote it. It's easier to promote, and then we can add the blog to other social channels. So,
absolutely. So, tell me more about how you fell into marketing.
That's an interesting question. I was working. So as I mentioned, I was working for a big defense contractor, and at the time, that's when computer animation was really starting to make it big. And so I really wanted to get involved with that. I thought that was a fascinating business. So I started doing some of that myself. And then, through some personal changes in life, not nothing bad, just getting married, settling down, moving, I ended up working for a small computer company. It wasn't focused on engineering and stuff, but there I started working with the marketing organization. And then, I actually went back and this is probably a little off topic, but I actually went back to career coach to decide where I should be looking. And I decided I wanted to stick in the design and engineering field in the industry and in software, which I spent most of my career in. So marketing seemed to be, I was more like technical sales and then marketing as well. Even though I only took one marketing class in college. So, I just made that transition, and I felt like it was a good fit, and I've enjoyed it ever since. I really enjoy marketing, especially to this industry, to this community of designers and engineers, inventors.
So when was your conversation with this career coach? How many years ago?
Gosh, that was probably about 15 years ago. Yeah.
How does that work? Many of us, including myself, I've never spoken with a career coach. What is that like? Where do you find them? Well,
yeah. So I think my wife actually recommended this woman to me, and it was more, and I'm glad you bring up this point, because I think a lot of times, like I have one son in college, and my second child is he's looking at colleges, and my oldest one knew exactly what he wanted to do, and the second one is, he's involved in so many different things. And I feel like we need some type of a career coach, counselor for children when they're leaving high school or even a junior or senior year, because there's a great opportunity. I'm not sure if you've heard of the Myers-Briggs test.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah. So it's two women who basically looked at personality profiles and broke it down into basically 16 different groups. And you can figure out your personality profile, which, helps you decide what kind of career paths are right for you. And then I did a skills assessment as well. What are your skills and what are your personality traits? And
you did this when you did the career coach, right?
Okay. Yeah. She helped me out with the resume and this sort of thing, and deciding where I wanted to go. But that was very fascinating. I've never done that before, and I was thinking, wow, that'd be great for younger audiences, right? To try to determine based on their personality profile and their skills, what would be the best career path for them, right? Instead of, as most of us did in my generation, growing up in the 80s, it was, you just kind of, I was actually, I was very artistic in high school, right? I enjoyed art and enjoyed doing artwork and stuff. And my dad, really deferred me from, defer is not the right word, but he really definitely pointed me in a different direction, because he's like, there's no money to be made in art. You'll be poor your whole life. But that's not true today, right? There's so many graphics and social opportunities where art is you can build a great career in art these days. But he steered me towards engineering just because that was seen as the place to be, right? At the time. But it would have been great to find to do some sort of skills and personality type assessment to find out what where you would fit better in professionally.
I see. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't know we were going to go this path. This is this different direction.
This is very insightful.
But yeah, if it's good.
So when you said that you visit people or some SOLIDWORKS customers that have interesting stories, do you actually go visit them in person?
Well, yeah, pre-COVID, yes, yeah, and then actually, when we would have, it's called 3D Experience World now, but previously it was called SOLIDWORKS World. And it was a big event with 5,000 to 6,000 people. And we would go there, and so many designers and inventors and people with interesting stories. And we'd have a lot of them on stage speaking. And then I would capture a lot of the podcasts there. I'd have a little podcast booth, and I'd talk to them and listen to their fascinating stories. And I would probably do 10 or 12 within 3 days. Podcast with a lot of the designers at SOLIDWORKS World. But since the last 2 years, since COVID, I've done only a couple in-person interviews. Most of them have been over Zoom meetings. Yeah.
Well, think about, we're only going to do one COVID comment here, but think about how tragic COVID could have been without all the electronic communication, right? So at least we have video calls.
Oh, exactly. Time. Absolutely. 100% agree. Yeah.
I see. Well, given that you run the SOLIDWORKS podcast, well, let me ask you, whose idea was that? Did you propose that to somebody?
Yeah, I proposed the idea. Yeah, because I thought there had to be, because video was great, but usually, people only want to watch about 3 to 5 minutes of video, especially on a topic. So when we were doing the customer stories, right, you can tell the story, what the company does, how they're using SOLIDWORKS, how they're solving problems, right? That's the purpose of the videos, right? And, that's 3 to 4 minute video is probably plenty of time to do that. But if you're telling, a story, the backstory, it takes a lot longer than that. And that's something that you can listen to, like an audiobook, right? And, and podcasts were really growing at that time.
What else do you do at SOLIDWORKS?
So really, that's my focus is customers. So, working with marketing teams worldwide, because the marketing, the sales team has a connection with the customer, and I don't know the names of the companies in Italy or in Japan, right? So I have to work with those local geo-marketing leaders to make sure that they have customers that have interesting stories that we could build a case study for, build a video for, write a blog about, et cetera, and build that content and promote it through marketing on the SOLIDWORKS channels, right?
Okay, so given that you are the host of the SOLIDWORKS podcast, like you said earlier, you tend to ask the questions. So now the roles have reversed. What's something, what's something that you wish some people would ask you that you think would be interesting for people to know about you or about you hosting the show? Broad, open question.
Honestly, everybody asks me, a lot of people I talk to, they want a list of questions ahead of time, and I tell them, I said, I really don't have questions. I don't like to be prepared. I like to just take the conversation where it's going. But I do focus on, if I do have questions, it's this, and I start with, I want to know what they're doing now, right? Where they started, right? How they got from point A to point B, right? And then what inspired them? What drove them to solve this problem, right? And that's really it. And other questions will come out of that. That's really the only questions I focus on. Sometimes I always like to ask them what the future of design is, right? Where's this going? What do you think is the new innovations that we need to talk about? And it's amazing. A lot of it, as I think I talked about earlier, was collaboration. We talk, I think I mentioned, I don't know if this was when we were talking before we recorded or not, but we talked about Tesla and Einstein, how they were very secretive. They worked in silence, right? They didn't share any ideas, but designers and engineers work in more of a collaborative environment these days, share ideas, try to get to market quicker, right? Because there's a lot of competition out there. So collaboration seems to be a common theme that I'm hearing these days.
I think that we've covered 2 out of the 3 questions that you ask your guests on your podcast, the SOLIDWORKS podcast. The third question would be, what inspired you to choose more of the marketing avenue? You mentioned the career coach. Anything else that inspired you to take this route in your career?
You know what? That's a great question, but I don't know if I have an answer. It just kind of...
I stole it from someone.
Yeah, I know. I think I just naturally, slowly migrated there. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Well, do you have any questions for me? Since you're such a good person asking questions, you could ask me a couple of questions if you like too.
Yeah, so I mean, you're a young engineer yourself. You've got a long career ahead of you. What are you interested in, or what inspires you to keep moving forward?
Well, thanks for asking. I'm not so young anymore. I just turned 31 last week.
You're still young.
So I started out in genetics. I did a mobile application, and now I'm doing mechanical engineering for the last 4 years. And what really interests me is using the mechanical engineering knowledge and the business knowledge I have to develop one day products in the medical field and the rehabilitation field. I think that health is wealth, that if we don't have health, we don't have anything. And this also plays in with what your wife does. Being healthy, it's just so important. And I want to develop products that influence people's health and have them have better life. That would make me... It's like a extra paycheck that makes me feel good if I can impact people's lives in that way.
Oh, that's a great answer. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Yeah, I think we need to, I totally 100% agree. We need to focus on health. I think at least here in America, we're stuck on quick fixes to our health, and we need to go back to the basics, cooking our own meals for ourselves, putting healthy ingredients in our bodies and stuff. So yeah, it's good.
My wife and I actually meal prep. We make like 30 meals in one day, and then we freeze them all. And then we have meals readily available, and I call them 30 good decisions in the fridge.
That's awesome. I mean, I think there's very few people doing that. I think that's great.
Well, you're the perfect person to ask this question to. Like, we're jumping topics. I hope all listeners can keep up with this, but changing subjects here. I also do mechanical engineering and the marketing at the company that I work at right now, Pipeline. That's why I'm co-hosting the show, and I do write some other blogs and create the marketing content on YouTube. What would you say, maybe some career advice for me, or like the perfect blend? How can I use my skill sets? Imagine a Venn diagram. The marketing overlaps with the mechanical engineering. I'm in that sweet spot of that overlap of the two circles. what more can I do to bring more value to the company that I work at?
Well, I think, when we are interviewing candidates for jobs at SolidWorks for marketing positions, I think the very first question is, or the very first thing I want to see is writing ability. Really, writing is such an important part to marketing. And we're not talking like you have to write a 5-page essay, right? Tag good subject lines for emails is very important. You have to learn how to engage people, engage customers. So for marketing, yeah, I mean, and the thing is there is a lot of overlap, with engineering and marketing. I wrote a blog years ago about, something about how can marketing and engineering get along better. But there is a lot of overlap there, right? They're both problem solving in a way.
I'm looking for that blog right now.
Oh, it's old. I'd have to find it. Yeah, it's probably from 2014 or something. Yeah.
What resource would you give to someone like myself that wants to improve their writing? Where would you point them to?
Gosh, a resource for writing. That's a good question. I don't have the answer for that. Yeah. I think just researching and looking at other marketing ideas. I know I used to have pages bookmarked of good subject lines, and I would always just look at I have an answer for you, okay. and I think this is just me. I don't know if other marketers would agree, but I actually really enjoy commercials.
Okay.
I enjoy the Super Bowl. I like football, but I always pay attention to the commercials, and I'm one who's very critical. Oh, that commercial's no good, and that one's very engaging. And what made this one work? Why was I interested in this product and not this one? So I think I'm always fascinated with commercials.
What's a commercial that has stood out to you lately?
Actually, the one from the Super Bowl about, even though it's probably, I don't know if this is a hot topic, but it was about a Bitcoin, and it was just the little thing bouncing around the screen. I thought it made people engaged. I thought that was good. There's some good car commercials recently that I've enjoyed as well. So I thought that one caught my eye. I think of some other ones.
When you come across an interesting, have you ever participated in making a commercial, in the production of a commercial?
Well, we do have videos. We have so many types of videos at SolidWorks, right? We have demo videos that show off the product, and then we have some that are more advertising commercials, and definitely a couple of short commercials to draw interest about a new product or a new initiative that we've had in marketing were inspired by commercials that I've seen. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, right on. Well, Cliff, is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should have asked you?
I'm trying to think. The only thing is, I will say that there's one thing that inspires me outside of work in this community. And I've talked to a lot of educators about, and that's about education. I really think there's, seems like a lot of engineers are unaware. I mean, for example, let me start with this, maybe cut all that out, but there's so many, if you ask high school students, 99.9% of them will have a mobile phone in their pocket, right? But if you asked any of them how it was made, I bet there's less than 1% that understands how a mobile phone was made. I don't think we do a great job. There's so much technology out there. There's still such a need for younger people in manufacturing. And the manufacturing jobs today are not whether you were, you're not an assembly line worker, right? You get to, program robots and this sort of thing. So there's so many cool jobs in manufacturing and design. And I think we need to find a way to do a better job reaching those children, right? Because I was definitely one who, luckily, I took a drafting class through tech ed in high school, and I was like, "This is great! I love this. Why can I do this full time?" So it's we teach math in school, but we should also, I think we should, I'm very lucky. My kids have had a great high school where they've had, they've had tech ed classes and computer classes and marketing classes and video production. And I think, we need to expose more children to that, because I think we're missing an opportunity to reach them at the critical time where they're, when they're looking into new areas and new territories and looking into their future.
Absolutely. Education is very important. But to wrap this up, I wanted to thank you. And how can people find you?
I just mainly the SOLIDWORKS blog. You can look under podcast, and if you just look up SOLIDWORKS or Born to Design in any of your podcast platforms, you'll be able to find the podcast. And it's not about me though. It's there's some really interesting people out there, and I've tried to capture their story, and they have a lot of interesting things to tell. So,
got it. Well, Cliff, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you.
I'm Aaron Monker, founder of Pipeline Design and Engineering. If you liked what you heard today, please share the episode. To learn how your team can leverage our team's expertise developing turnkey equipment, custom fixtures, and automated machines, and with product design, visit us at teampipeline.us. Thanks for listening.